So namaste and welcome to Satsang. So tonight a topic that's been coming up all week, which I think is worth discussing, is why so many of us don't always tend to experience the deepest, um, simplest, and deepest realization of the real self that we are, and why that really is. What stops us from living in that namaste. Namaste means, or one translation of it should say, divine in me recognizes the divine in you. And it's easy enough to say that, but how many of us are actually living from that experience on a consistent, continual basis? And why is that number not where we would like it to be, that percentage, whatever way we're going to look at it? What is the um, enemy of spiritual growth in a way? What is the undoing of a deepening realization? And what can we do to turn that around? And I really want to look at this in a simpler way, hopefully, so that we can perhaps go deeper even tonight. And the one thing that stops everyone from seeing the truth and then from living the truth is arrogance. And I'm going to explain what I mean by arrogance, perhaps not the same as other teachings, but in my own pathway, in my own experience, the one thing that really slowed everything down, firstly, the seeing of what I was, what I am, and then the living as that was arrogance. And I had this idea before that arrogance was some kind of prideful thing, this kind of I'm better than you, or I'm more awake than you, or something like that. And it really began to morph really and to shift as I deepened in my seeing what arrogance is in its most simplistic, easy to understand, and then transcend form. And it really is just a simple certainty that how we're seeing things in this moment is true. The simple recognition, conviction deep inside that what I think is going on is actually what's going on. And never do we hold more tightly to that than when we feel that we are failing in our awakening or not deepening, not progressing. Never do we hold tighter to the arrogance. Arrogance really, for me, became this sense that I know here what I'm certain of here. So for a long time, I was very certain that it was never ever going to happen for me. And even that it was a happening rather than a seeing. And then even when I started to see some shifting in my life, despite my best resistance to waking up, it started to happen anyway. But it was happening too slowly, and that was the arrogance then. It's just taking too long. So, and then the arrogance came, it changed, but not many people can live from the Buddha nature, as the Buddha nature, as the real self, as the noumenon. It's commonly known in human kind that not many people live this realization to the deepest level, that it's hard to do or something like that. It's difficult. And all of these facts that we are sure of inside have really been agreed upon by humanity for so long that it's become a kind of rigid belief system and arrogance in itself. The sense that I know that this is going to be the hardest thing I've ever done, or this is going to take a long time, or I might not fully achieve it, or it's easy to see the self, not so easy to fully live as it. That another kind of arrogance I had was that giving up everything that I thought was valuable to me, my whole thought system, my belief system, how I saw the world, the belief that this is a world full of objects and that I am separate to it all. There was a real arrogance that was going to be really difficult to give up, a huge, huge sacrifice. And also the arrogance that there would be some big moment where, I had to really kind of jump off a cliff of knowingness into the unknown. That was something I was certain of, that there would be this moment where I had to choose, and I was probably going to choose wrong. And so, of course, I experienced everything like that. I walked up to this cliff edge, peered over the edge twice, and backed away for a good long while. So arrogance we can hopefully define not as an egotistical, prideful thing, but egotistical as in what I'm sure I know as a separate being, what I'm certain is happening right now, like a conviction that I'm not already in the same place as the teaching or the sages are pointing to, and a conviction that I'm not worthy of living as that right now, or a conviction, certainty, a total arrogance that there's more I need to do to see this fully, or any one of these things is going to lead to whatever you're certain of. Whatever you're holding tightly is what you're going to experience. And most of us are holding it tightly because we keep experiencing it, and around we go. So arrogance really we can define as what knowledge we have picked up from our experiences, from our world, from our pathway so far, from other beings around us, that we accept without question. We accept that this is what is, and even when somebody was already progressing their awakening says this is not really how it is, we're still allowing our own knowledge to override that, to contradict that. This sense that a lot of people have, that I had, that my ego is worse than anyone else's, and if anyone really saw what was in my ego, they'd understand why it's harder to transcend it. And we have to be really, really careful of what we hold on to, and what we're unwilling to examine is what's going to slow down this unfolding that's already happening. So what's the antidote to this then? What's the undoing of arrogance? And it's really just a willingness to actually see what's true, no matter what we seem to be experiencing in any particular moment. Do we have a deep and abiding curiosity to actually see what's true, or are we allowing our mind to tell us what's actually so? A deep and abiding curiosity, if you can foster such a thing, into what reality actually is, what all this actually is, what you actually are right now already, is the fastest way to a deep and firm understanding and realization, and then lived experience of that self, that real self. Curiosity, humility, we could say. The actual definition of humility it comes from being humble, and the strictest definition of that word is to be unassuming, and it's kind of been given this other vibration going along with it, hasn't it? That it's somehow implying that we're not quite up to par. Humility is not unworthiness. Humility is an honesty that actually everything I think about myself and others in the world as I know it, the sum total of my knowledge may not be what's actually true. And if we can be humble enough to admit that, and curious enough then to see what actually is real, then that's a wide open doorway where realization on a deep level has to occur. We have this inherent fear as human beings of being wrong, of getting the wrong answer to something, or to admit that everything we've gathered, our knowledge and everything over the years, is basically not true. And it's true in a relative term. Everything we know and think in a relative way, it's all true there. But for the sake of a deep and lasting, deeply grounded, saturated your entire life awakening, then we're going to have to admit that maybe what we think isn't true. And the more willing we are to do that, the easier ride we'll have with this whole awakening process. There's some areas of my knowledge that I clung to, things I'm sure is true, that I'm not good enough to wake up, and life had to show me the hard way that I'm already adequate for realization. And there must be something inside each one of us. If we looked within each corner of our being, there'll be something inside all of us that we are certain of where we are right now, perhaps even more certain of where we've still got to go on this pathway. And if you're willing to drop all that in a moment to admit that maybe no thought has ever been absolutely true about what I actually am, what all this is, then there's a huge opening inside you. What if it's not true already that there's any further to go? What if it's not true that letting go of all of your thoughts is going to be painful and a sacrifice? What if it's not true even that there's a cliff to jump off of? What if you're already standing far away from that cliff, watching some idea, some thought about yourself standing on the edge, and that's not actually you? What if nothing you've thought about awakening or any of this is true? What if there is something right here, right now, that can be experienced, that all of this actually is, that is just so much better than we could ever conceptualize about it, you know? What if mind is only ever supposed to point the way to it, and then the edge of the mind, the edge of the usefulness of the mind is the thought that thoughts can only think about things. Thoughts can only think about the self, and mind can never experience the self. So if you're willing to be deeply humble and deeply curious in this moment, I don't mean unworthy, sort of giving all my possessions away and trying to be something spiritual. I mean, just a willingness, a deep willingness to say, I might have been wrong about what all of this is. I might have been wrong about all of my stories about myself. I might be wrong about all my flaws and imperfections. I might be wrong about all of these things I think are here and all these other beings. I might be something fundamentally here first before all of that, which is available only to experience in that openness, that willingness to admit that right here, in terms of realization, my knowledge is not really worth all that much. It doesn't make it wrong. It's just that knowledge can only take you so far. And this curiosity, hopefully, is building to experience directly what everything actually is. What's waiting to be experienced. It's not really waiting, it's already here, but we can experience with a deep curiosity, a profound wanting to see actually what actually is already here, what all of this is, what my body is, what my world is, what all of these solid objects are that I think are solid objects, what God is, what life is, what reality is, what the self is. There is something that will surpass anything that we can imagine or dream of. And what if, tales like Alice in Wonderland are actually pointing to something? That there is this rabbit hole you can go down, a rabbit hole of a dropping of arrogance in this moment, and a fostering of curiosity, being innocent again like a child in terms of, I don't really know anything about this world, what it is, what I am. I don't know anything about it at all. And that can either feel terrifying or exciting, and probably a mixture of both. It was for me. But the excitement, the curiosity got the better of me. I just had to find out what this is, what all this actually is, what really is real. And is it as amazing as all the sages have said? And there is absolutely no thought that you would want to keep a hold of when you experience what's real, even for a second. There is so much here in this moment that we can experience if we're willing to be curious and childlike, to be open and innocent of all knowledge, and all that conceptual knowledge is still there. I can still know what time I have to get online for satsang and all of that stuff, remember my name, but it's a surface, it's only a surface knowing. Are you willing to dig deeper into what's actually here? Are you willing to look at the nearest object to you? Perhaps it's your body, perhaps it's the thing you're sitting on, and become deeply curious about what it is. A deep, deep curiosity, and a lasting curiosity that becomes a kind of obsession that builds into just a burning desire to have to know, and knowing by experiencing, not thinking about. Is there a fire lighting inside you as I'm talking? I really hope so. I really want you to experience what everything actually is, what you actually are. Maybe it's not at all like you thought. Maybe it's not at all difficult. Maybe what's difficult is just letting go of this sense of what I'm sure is true about awakening, about enlightenment, about myself, and all of that. Everyone that has ever realized the self has done it through this open, simple curiosity and humility and willingness to be totally wrong. I'm not at all what I thought I was, and nothing at all is what I thought it was. And again, I'm not making mind wrong. I'm not making our egoic sense of self wrong. But what if that was just the smallest way we could experience ourselves, the world, life? What if there was just so much more waiting? But we're holding that experience at bay with some belief, something we're arrogantly holding on to. I'm not good enough yet. I haven't understood enough yet. It takes a long time. It's going to be painful to let go. It's something really scary is going to happen to me. I'll never be the same again afterwards. Well, yeah, that one's true. You won't. You'll be a lot happier, a lot more joyful, a lot more peaceful. You won't be able to suffer. That one is true. I'll give you that one. There's stuff I need to let go of first. I'm too old to wake up. I've been doing it too long. If I was going to break through, I would have done it by now. Like, this just isn't working for me. All of these voices that come, you're never going to do this. Who do you think you are? How are you going to hold down a job after you've reached awakening? Are you willing to question those, all of those? What if they're not true? What if everything carries on exactly as it was your entire life? But inside there's just joy and peace and a growing love and bliss that increases every single day. And an ever deepening experience of what you actually are, what all this is. An intimacy with all of life. A total profound knowingness of what everything is before you even meet it. Total absence of any fear or suffering. And all of that knowledge that we're holding on to so tightly, that we're sure of, is going to stop us or is stopping us, or roadblocks that we think are there. You know, what if it's not true already that your mind can stop you? What if no resistance is more powerful than you? What if no thought, no doubt is actually true? What if nothing you are scared of can actually happen in reality already? Are you willing to let all that go and find out what this is, what you are? I'm not going to try to describe what all this is, but I can tell you it's a whole lot better than living in our heads. There is nothing wrong with thought, but it is the tip of the iceberg, of an infinite iceberg of what is possible for us to experience in this moment as human beings. We are so profoundly lucky to be here in a human form, and then to be here in Satsang, even to realize there's something to realize, and to be almost at the end of that journey, to be hearing these kind of words. You're almost, the curiosity is growing already, or else you wouldn't be hearing this. We are profoundly lucky. The only thing that can stop you is you. Whatever you're arrogantly holding on to, whatever you're certain of, I'm never going to get this. It isn't going to happen for me. You know, I keep getting it and then I lose it. Just be really careful what you give your powerful agreement to, because it will immediately become your experience. In a total moment of openness and a willingness to be curious. You know, how you were when you were 3 years old, before we were taught what was appropriate to be as an adult. In a moment of that, everything can shift. There is something absolutely wonderful about you, and it's really not that hard to find, unless you believe it's hard. Unless you believe you're not good enough, and then you'll keep experiencing failing at it. And trust me, that gets a little old after a while. It gets kind of boring. Maybe you already know that. So you are in Wonderland already, but you don't know it. You are already right down the rabbit hole. You might as well finish the job off. You might as well find out what all this actually is. You can't really go back now to that conceptual world and believing yourself only to be a human being. And why would you want to? Is it really true that it's not safe to wake up? To be innocent, to be curious? And I mean innocent in terms of, am I willing to admit all my stories about myself might not have ever been what is real about me? Yes, they seem real, but what if they're not the fullest truth of who I am? So in any moment, we are either being arrogant or we're being curious. We're either being, we either know and we're certain, or we're being humble and open. And awakened beings may look like that they know a lot and that they've realized a lot. But inside, they are just like a child. They are totally open. They don't know anything about anything, and they don't want to either. They don't want to meet anything from their memory. They want to meet everything as it is. Next time you look at something, can you look at it without grabbing a hold of immediately the label that comes, the name that comes with it, and all the baggage that comes? There's three things that meet that keep the ego together, formed. And that is what our senses are taking in, the label that that thing is given, and then all of the associated memory. We keep this illusion alive of what we think all this is, what we think we are, in our memory. If we come to something, meet it for the first time, as if it's for the first time, because it really is. And the label and the baggage around something will be suggested to you, but you don't have to stop. You can become curious. Well, is that label and those memories about this thing all it really is? Do I have to interact with this being, this thing, based on what I think it is? Is there a deeper way for me to experience what this being is? Most of us stop at the labels and we live our labels only. We live our conceptual knowledge only. We might as well be walking around with our eyes closed. So curiosity will make this label and the conceptual baggage around everything slide to the background, and openness to experience what it actually is. And you might just surprise yourself that you've never met yourself ever, or anything. You might surprise yourself as to what you can discover about what reality actually is. Anything that you thought was a sacrifice to let go of, you'll find out it really wasn't. It really isn't a sacrifice to let go of so much of what we think. You just try it for 5 minutes even. See if you like it. And if you don't, you can go back to the old way. So if there's any fear based on what I've just said, perhaps what the mind is scared of isn't really possible. If there's desire arising out of what I just said, then really that makes me happy. If something just absolutely has to find out now, and that makes me really excited. If it stimulates jealousy inside, good. That was the way it happened for me too. I just had to experience what the sages were talking about. I had to. There was no other option. Okay, so I will take some questions, or if anybody wants to share something. I do have a question that's been emailed in, which I'll read first and answer. But if you want to ask a question, you can click on participants and scroll down to the bottom of that and click on raise hand, and it will let me know that you want to ask a question. So we'll start with this question first, and then we'll come to Steve after. So the question says, hi, I have a satsang question. I was listening to the back and forth on the satsang between Helen and Sophie, and what struck me is how readily Sophie was able to access emotional answers as part of the contemplation. So this is in reference to the satsang we did on Monday on contemplation. which is on YouTube if you want to look at it. So what struck me is how readily Sophie was able to access emotional answers as part of the contemplation. I learned from a young age to switch off emotions and live mainly in my head. I have experienced emotional answers before, but this has only been during periods of intense upheaval, after which I then go back to experiencing life above the neck, as it were. Is this a block to moving forward with my contemplation, as it certainly feels like it is? And if so, how would I find my way around this so that I can contemplate more effectively? That's a good question. So, okay, if I experienced emotional answers before, but this has only been during periods of intense upheaval, after which I then go back to experiencing life above the neck, as it were. Is this a block to moving forward? So if there is some sort of idea inside that experiencing emotion is not safe, if we've had some kind of programming or some experience that's taught us feeling emotion is not safe for me, it sounds like what's happening here, that only when life is really sort of in an upheaval, in my outer world is in a uncertainty, and then I can't actually suppress the emotion. That's when I feel them. But after that, then I go back to asserting control over my emotions and keeping them suppressed. It's probably been that there's been some kind of experience where there was very intense emotion, and it kind of scared something inside, and something said then, okay, this is not good to feel. Or perhaps we were expressing some emotion as a child and somebody has made us feel that that wasn't appropriate or something. So there's this idea then that feeling emotion is unsafe, usually in a lot of beings. It certainly was in myself. So I'd suggest it's not a block to the contemplation, it's just something you might need to go and look at first. Why? What is the idea inside that not feeling emotion is going to, fill in the blank? Is it going to keep you safer? Is that what the idea is? That if I control everything inside myself, I'll be safer, things will be better, people will like me more, something like that. And have a look at what that idea is and really examine, is that true actually now? It might have been a good thing to do to not be emotional, to not feel emotions previously in the past, based on who you thought yourself to be then. And if you were a small child, in a big world, that idea can seem, a good way to try to stay safe. So have a look at what the idea is behind suppressing the emotions, and see if it's still true now, or is that actually hindering you now? Something that was useful before might be now hindering you, but perhaps we haven't gone back to actually look at that. If there is some idea that, is this a block to moving forward in my contemplation? Well, actually, it's actually the contemplation bearing fruit, isn't it? That I am, what am I? Well, and I see these mental answers and I don't notice emotional answers. So I'm starting to see where I'm not being my authentic self, where I've learned to be someone else that perhaps pleases other people more or feels safer or something. So it isn't the block, it's just a contemplation deepening and seeing where we need to put a little bit of attention. Why do I feel deep inside that not showing my emotions is going to make me safer or something like that? And if so, how would I find my way around this so I can contemplate more effectively? Well, just to question the assumption, is it still the best thing to do to not show my emotions, to not allow them to the surface? Is that still the most intelligent way to proceed with my life? Is that still the thing that I even want? Or is it just kind of automatically, unconsciously stayed, this program has been running, be this particular person. That worked for a while. When you do this type of thing, everybody likes you, you get on and you feel safe. But is that working now? Is that what you want now? And just to question that assumption is going to allow this opening up to happen. And it'll be exactly your own pace. It's not going to be this massive explosion of emotion unless you want to fully allow it like that. You know, it doesn't have to be experienced that way. The main thing is you're seeing it. You're seeing where you are blocking yourself with some belief. There must be some belief in there, some idea. So that's already evidence that you're coming out of it. Can't be blocked at all, ever. It's only where we're experiencing the result of a thought that we're holding on to. And again, we could even say this is a form of the arrogance I was talking about, some belief that's been picked up as earlier on in life, some idea of how I'm supposed to be that we're holding on to very, very tightly. So much so that it's now causing a challenge in deepening your seeing. Okay. Good question. Okay, we'll go to Steve.
Hello, Ellen.
Hiya, how you doing?
Not too bad, are you?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. You said a lot in that half hour. I'll try to follow it and get it mixed up. But one or two things popped up. You said something about fear of letting go of anything. And I tend to look and I think, oh, I don't believe I'm trying to let go of anything, but I might have just deluded myself here. That's what I'm thinking now. Can I be fear of letting go of something without even knowing I'm hanging on to it?
Yes, we can definitely be. I'm not saying you are, but it's definitely very possible to be holding on very tightly without realizing. You know, and as the previous, you know, the question that was emailed in, there's a similar thing happening, and it was the same for me. I started to really dig into this arrogance. There was a lot of ideas that it's going to be the greatest sacrifice of my entire life to let go of all this stuff. And it really wasn't like that when I actually did it. It was really joyful and exciting and liberating. So yeah, it's possible. But just to want to see, you will be shown if you really want to see, am I doing that? You know, that's the way to find out.
Right. I will be playing this one back and I'm another good look. But there's something else that came up this morning in my mind, and I thought I'll forget about that, and I did do. So that's why I've been what that now, and it's come back. And it was somewhat. It's a bit like about the contextual field. It's so attached to that somehow. And the field and everything is in me. And then something I heard one of the teachers on YouTube say that say the guitar over there is the light's shining on it, that goes into my head, and somewhere in the background it gets mixed up and turned into a guitar, if you like, and it's projected out there. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Right. I don't know what the question is here.
Well, you're not actually seeing a guitar, are you? It's been proven that what you're seeing is a vibration. What your eyes are actually taking in through the optic nerve is a vibration. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's what I'm thinking. So is it in myself, all this lot, or is it in my mind? That's what I'm getting at. Is there a difference here? Is all that happening in my mind, or is it happening in myself? Which is ultimately, it's all happening in myself, isn't it? But
is all what happening in your mind? Just clarify what you mean by that.
But it's all happening in my brain, isn't it? In my brain. That's inside my body. That's physical, biological. I'm trying to work out, is it biological or is it, do you know what I mean? No.
What are our tendency to see objects, do you mean? Is that...
If it's all inside me, is it inside my mind or is it inside the cell? That's what. Is it inside my body or is it inside the whole cell? It's somewhat like that. I'm trying to work out the difference. This one sounds like it's in my body.
We could say that the whole world is inside your mind. The whole world of things is inside your mind. That's the only place. Everybody is agreeing. Every human body is agreeing that it's a conceptual, that there are all these objects out here in the way that we think, of which I am one of them, you know, moving around in the world. And that is not actually what's true, but it exists up here as we project it out onto the world, but we think that what we think we're seeing is what is actually there. So there's reality, and then there's projecting what we think about reality onto the top of it.
I think get that. Yeah, I think get it. Yeah. To contemplate that now. Thank you.
Lovely. Good stuff. Okay, Sophie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hiya.
Hi. It's really beautiful. I'm sitting by the river in Herefordshire. It's just the flow of Satsang.
Lovely.
Let's give you a little look.
Oh, we're not jealous at all, no.
Well, it's a different kind of jealousy I've got. So, I'm really glad you're speaking about this arrogance, because this has come up really for me very strongly, especially with the Dissolving Ego course as well.
It tends to shake things up a bit, hey?
And what's really there, and this is nothing new, but I really just want to share it to kind of acknowledge it openly, really. And I know you've said this before, so it's that arrogance that's saying, I just don't want to. There's this really strong no.
Yeah.
That is just saying, no, I'm not going to, I don't want to. And it's really against the divine, really. It's saying no to the divine, no to looking who I am, no to, it's just a massive no.
And you can't make me, I'm not doing it. I'm just gonna, yeah, you know. It's like that little toddler, isn't it, inside, just going, nope, no, I'm not doing it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And it's and I mean, there could be loads of emotion around that, of, you know, why it's doing that, protection and whatever. But essentially, what I get a very brief glimpse of is that, you know, you were saying about in contrast, like you see in contrast. So that no, in contrast to the silence of, well, it's not even a yes, it's just the acceptance, just an openness.
Yeah.
But it's a very, very brief kind of seeing of that, because the no is just making such a noise, and a physical contraction, you know. So and to me that is a real primary arrogance, because it's just in denial, refusal of being myself, of being God, of love, whatever.
Maybe there's a little bit deeper than that we can look at. Maybe there's something even underneath that we're certain of, that we can expose, actually. Maybe there's an idea that this no has to disappear before I can wake up. Maybe we're certain of that this clenched fist inside me that's just like, no, maybe we have an idea that has to disappear before I wake up, you know, and it's just not true. How much energy do we waste trying to get the no to turn into a yes, when there's already a yes inside, isn't there? Already, you're here in satsang, even when you could be sat by that beautiful river, you're listening to this. So there's a huge yes already that hasn't been stopped by the no. You know, can you get a sense of that? Maybe it's not true that the no has to go away at all. Maybe it's only so loud because you're trying to change it. You're trying to turn the no into a yes. And what if there is an easier way that, okay, I'll just leave that be and carry on without it, you know, without trying to change it. You know, some part of all of us that's saying no, this is just not a good idea. You know, what are you doing? You know, don't listen to that crazy woman. You know, you're going to lose everything. I mean, you don't need to change that or convince it otherwise, and you can't even. And you don't even have to get rid of it. You can just leave it right where it is. Don't buy this idea that you've got to, it's your job to change, to convince the no. Because the no, that which is saying no, that kind of small, frightened child inside, can't really see what the self is anyway. Therefore, if it could see, you could say, look at this, look, it's all right. You know, the self is love. But it can't see, so there's not really any point in trying to change it. We can just understand why it's saying no and just leave it right where it is. Let it just do its thing. You feel that might be what the contraction is inside, that you're trying to do something that's impossible and also unnecessary. Somehow we've got this idea that we're all convinced of, that I've got to get rid of this resistance before I wake up. But what if the waking up was just actually leaving that alone, you know, in a loving way, not saying you need to disappear. Because if you're trying to reject that part of yourself or change it, you're going to feel at war within yourself, aren't you? You're going to feel conflicted. Yeah. Simpler than we thought, easier than we thought. You just pat it on the head. Okay, you stick with your no, that's fine. And I'll carry on anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Good. Enjoy your time there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ian and Maggie, or Ian or Maggie?
Hi.
Hiya.
Hiya. I don't know if I've got a question or not, but kind of identified quite a lot with that first question that was read out. Because quite recently, I've started to have some really, really strong emotions about things. And there was a time on this journey where I felt everything was getting more peaceful and more calm. So I think that there was a natural kind of assumption that means I was kind of getting somewhere, I guess, because that's the kind of image of a guru, isn't it? They're all kind of chilled.
Yeah, they never have any disturbance in the force or anything. They're just kind of, yeah.
But just recently, it's been kind of like I've had things come up where there's been a lot of emotion. And even sometimes when I'm out walking the dog and I go past some trees and my eyes are filling up with water kind of thing, and I'm starting to like get emotional. I have no idea why. I'm just
Is that negative emotion though, or is that something else happening?
Yeah. But I guess I can see that obviously being with my childhood, I was quite shy and I did a lot of like repression of emotions. And I was just wondering if you think men in particular have a bit more of a problem with it. Or am I just making sweeping statements?
Yeah, this is one of those, how can I avoid answering this without digging a hole for myself questions. I think it's fair to say that a lot of men have had some programming that, you know, especially perhaps in previous generations, that showing emotion is just not appropriate. You know, if I look at my own father, you know, that was very much, you know, it's a sign of weakness. It was thought of as a sign, not by him, but this is what he picked up from those around him as he was growing up, and it was a real battle for him to feel anything. And in fact, the only time I remember him crying was when we were listening to some classical music. You know, put this classical music on very loud, and he was a totally different person, sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. But that was, like I was pointing to with the trees, it was from the beauty of it. It just lifts you up into a place, doesn't it, where we might be overcome with that feeling of everything being so beautiful. But Hopefully I've managed to answer the question without digging a hole.
I just as you were talking there, I kind of realised that I've really always admired men and women, in particular men who are able to show their emotions, or being able to just say, this is how I am.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, there was a famous incident in football years ago where I was at work with a lot of lads, and we were all kind of a similar age, and there was an interview by, people might not know this, but Kevin Keegan gave this interview. He's a manager, and he got really emotional. But he really, I thought, good for him. He's just he's rather than playing these mind games that a lot of sports people do, he just put out there, he got really emotional, and he got absolutely hammered for it. And at the time I was going, oh, good for him. He's really let rip, And all my workmates I remember in particular, they all thought that he was wrong. He shouldn't have done it.
Christ was always kind of my hero in this area. He was very unafraid to show his humanity. The divine is appearing as a human being, and he totally exemplified that.
Yeah.
Completely at home. He had those doubting moments. He had those probably moments of fear right towards the end. But he totally exemplified that I'm going to be whoever I am in this moment, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
But it's a skill that we can all relearn, isn't it? It's whatever idea has held it in place that it's not safe to be emotional or something like that. We can look at that, and it's not really true anymore for me, is it? In fact, it might be safer to let these things out now, and feel them and all that stuff.
So this is something you can contemplate on. Is it?
Yeah. Perhaps men do have certain challenges in the pathway that women don't, and vice versa. It's from society's structure and things like that, but it doesn't mean it's any harder to overcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lovely. Good question. Okay, Diane.
Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Excellent, thank you. This is a little bit in response to Sophie. And I had back in March, when the shelter in place started where I am, and a lot of places, there was this kind of wave of everybody doing something new and learning new things and learning a new language and taking painting class online and doing
suddenly working out and losing 20 pounds and all of that. Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? No. But for a little while it was good. It was like, yeah, okay. And then it just I just shut down, and I had a lot of just resistance, and it was just like, just no, leave me alone. I'm not doing anything. And that was really hard for me to have that that real resistance to everything. And it was a little bit unfamiliar to me, because I'm a yes kind of person. I want to try new things. I want to do stuff. I want to, this is how I am generally. So and it wasn't specifically to spiritual practice or anything. It was just kind of a general, just resistance to maybe the situation, maybe, whatever. Anyway, it was just like, no. And I finally, I got to a place where I was just like, yes to the no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I like this no. Like it was kind of a spark of enthusiasm to just saying yes to resisting whatever pressure I felt like I was putting on myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like it's outside, but there's not any outside or inside. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So listening to Sophie's kind of no thing happening, it just reminded me about that, like kind of excitement about the resistance, like 'cause it's a thing. It's okay. I'm allowed to have that. And
Yeah.
so
And
you
it's
realize
only
that,
this idea that we've got to pick one side. I've got to pick the yes or the no that really
yeah,
makes us suffer, isn't it?
yeah. So we kind of did like a no party, and then that was that. And
A
now
no
the no is
party, I like that. Yeah.
welcome, the yes is welcome, it's all okay. And yeah, so
Lovely. Sometimes it's just really good to just stop resisting the resistance, isn't it? I just
yeah,
don't need to do that anymore. It's fine. I'll just leave it be.
yeah. And it didn't really care one way or the other, honestly. You know. And then, but something in me cared enough to be recognizing it. So, but it was good. Yeah.
Oh,
And then,
thank you, very.
yeah, I was able to move on and then just go back to enjoying the things that I enjoy.
And maybe that serves a purpose, that no, maybe it's kind of, okay, I just need to slow down. I need to just take some time. I think a lot of us have been able to do that. It's been kind of, whether we like it or not, we've been given time to slow right down, and sometimes that's the only way we actually do that, isn't it? Just to have it seemingly forced upon us. So yeah, wonderful. Well, thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it. Lovely. Okay, last but not least, we'll go to Deborah.
Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I just wanted to bring forward an experience yesterday that I had when it really consolidated all the rebellion I have against the rules of life and the things that just tick me off about being controlled in the world. Like I had to go to the dentist, so I hate the fact that I have to wear a mask. I resent the fact that you have to pay so much money to go to the dentist and you have no choice because you've got to take care of your teeth. And looking at the fluoride controversy, not being able to know what the true science is around that, and just all the, I just felt so squeezed and constricted, and I've always felt like that in any government, like banks or anything where all these rules enforced on you. And in the past I would just pretend I'm all merry inside and try to ignore it. And yesterday I just let it just squeeze in on me and just kind of let it be there. And then
Quite
I
a thing to
realized
do, isn't it? To just let it, just let it in its intensity, just let it happen.
yeah. But I think I realized, I thought that if I did that, it would go away. But it didn't really, it just kept squeezing. And so I just been with that kind of squeezing. And I realized that I thought, if I'm being who I truly am, all of those kind of things would change on the outside somehow. That somehow everything would be perfect. I realized I thought that. And, so I really loved what you were saying today about letting go of not knowing what it's going to be like or not knowing.
Good. It's when we first just let that, sort of, for me there was a lot of anger inside. Life's not fair and this shouldn't be happening and all of that. There's a real intensity of it, and when I just finally let it be there, it did certainly build in intensity for a while. It really just needed to be felt for a while, let's just say, and then eventually it burned itself out. But it can be quite intense while it's there, obviously. But it should hopefully feel better in that you're no longer spending so much energy squashing this down, you know, and just allowing, even though it feels unpleasant to feel that way, there's a sense that I'm finally able to just feel this, you know, because that's being who you are in this moment. If there's anger, you be that in this moment, you know. There's, what's it like to live without that? I shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't feel this, you know. Let's just feel whatever I am in this moment, let me be that. There's a freedom in that, isn't there?
Just feel so trapped.
Trapped, yeah.
And what is freedom when we're in this? Yeah.
For me, there was I had to have a couple of lessons at that, you know, that I don't know what freedom is in this moment, and I don't want to know now, but I certainly had some ideas before about what it would look like, you know, and sometimes it just doesn't look like that. It's, you know, there might be some emotion coming up, but there's always an ability to be more and more authentic. This is just who I am in this moment, and there's a freedom, no matter what restrictions are on our body. You know, as you were speaking about before, we don't have to feel limited inside if we're just being authentically that in this moment. Whatever I am, I'm going to be that. You know, I'm not going to try to be something else from some idea that I've had. There's a freedom in that, isn't there? Where what that looks like, we don't know until we experience it in that moment, but it should come with that sense of not feeling limited. You know, even if it's some negative emotion being felt, I'll feel better because I'm actually feeling it. I'm no longer trying to spiritualize it away or something, you know, that we do. You know, when I'm more awake, I wouldn't feel this, you know. Enlightened beings certainly don't feel this way or that way, or they don't do this or say that, you know, all that stuff we do. Wonderful. Well, just keep being who you are, and it'll just get easier and easier. And maybe the outer circumstances will change to reflect that, maybe they won't, but you won't be suffering is the main thing, isn't it, you know? Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, and it's lovely to meet you. Thanks. Okay, so we leave it there for tonight. Lovely. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you're all deeply, deeply curious now. Namaste.